You said 4 were murdered. I don't understand.
Neither do we.
The letter was left with the bodies, written in a coded alphabet, not in the hand of anyone in any way connected to the families. We have 10 letters like it, made by the same hand, 10 houses, 10 families, over the past 30 years. And all of them signed one word: Longlegs.
In 1974, young Lee Harker sees an unfamiliar car parked in the driveway near her house, but when she goes to check it out, carrying her Polaroid camera, she finds the car empty. She follows a sound she hears from behind her house, and when she's near, a man with white makeup appears, calling her the almost birthday girl, then says, "I wore my long legs today," before suddenly jumping down to her eye level. Years later, FBI agents are partnered up.
Suspect likes to visit a certain kind of neighborhood. He's a middle-aged Caucasian male and not likely to go quietly. So let's always assume he's armed. We'll go alert, careful.
In Colfax, while Agent Fisk goes to a house, his partner, a now grown Lee, gets a bad feeling towards the house across the road, house 3525.
He's in there.
Why'd you say that?
I don't know.
Fisk refuses to report it and instead heads off to check it out. Agent Lee pulls out her gun and goes inside of the abandoned house to apprehend the suspect. Back in the headquarters, Lee sits in a dark room in front of a flickering projector, undergoing a test where she has to say the first thing that comes to her mind when they flash an image. She also has to guess the number generated by the numbers generator, a number between 0 and 100.
I don't know. 33?
Since Lee beat the numbers generator 8 times, her supervisor, Agent Carter, calls her half-psychic. Carter assigns her to a case that consists of a series of murder-suicides in Oregon. Each of the murder-suicides involves a father killing his family, then himself, along with a letter next to the bodies, written in a coded alphabet, but the handwriting does not belong to any of the family members. Over the past 30 years, there have been 10 letters like it, written by the same person, signed with the word Longlegs. When Carter asks Lee about how she identified the suspect's house in Colfax without any lead, Lee tells him that from time to time, something inside of her tells her where to look. Lee asks what the families have in common, to which Carter tells her that all of the families have daughters whose birthdays are on the 14th of any month, but only the Horns family was murdered on that date. After days of studying everything they have on the case, Lee tells Carter that Longlegs would have to be inside the house to murder the families, but physical evidence says that he never was.
There's no indication he was ever in the house at all. There's only the bodies of the victims.
They hypothesize that maybe Longlegs instructs the family what he wants them to do to each other, or that maybe he has an accomplice. Carter introduces Lee to his wife, Anna, and his young daughter, Ruby, who then invites Lee to come to her birthday party. At home, Lee talks to her mom, Ruth, on the phone. She hears loud banging on her door and sees a figure in the distance when she peeks through her window. Lee goes out with her gun but returns to the house after seeing someone walking inside. When she returns to her room, she finds an envelope on her desk addressed to her with a note that says, "Do not open until January 14th. With gloves on, Lee opens the envelope and finds a birthday card from Longlegs, which contains a letter written in codes with a clue, allowing her to decode it and reveals a warning that will lead to Ruth's murder. Pretty soon after, another family dies, and around a month later, their corpses are found.
Him again. We're real late on this one.
He hands her the letter Longlegs left and notices how quickly she decodes it to download too slow. Then they go to see the rotting corpses in the master bedroom, and another agent informs them that the daughter is around 9 or 10 years old. Lee calls her mom to tell her that she's going to be busy at work and that she's working on something important. After reviewing articles related to the case and checking death certificates, Lee discovers that it's an algorithm.
The first murder happens on July 14th, 1966. The rest occur within 6 days of the daughters' birthdays, either before or after. Creating an inverted triangle. Camera family farm, where X's mark the spot.
The Camera family.
But it goes bad due to Carrie Ann's father and the axe from the tool shed. Kills the priest, his wife, and then himself. Carrie Ann's at school, so she survives.
The incident happened on March 8, 6 days prior to her birthday, March 14th.
I believe Longlegs was at the Camera family farm.
Lee and Carter head to the Camera family farm, where they find a female doll hidden under the floorboards. Having it checked, they find a hollow metal ball inside of its head. The person inspecting the doll tells Carter and Lee that the other night, he heard the doll whispering his ex-wife's name over and over again.
The other night I could have sworn it was whispering my ex-wife's name over and over again.
Meanwhile, Longlegs goes to a family-owned store and asks the young cashier how old she is. The girl screams for her dad. Driving away, Longlegs mimics her screaming for her parents in a mocking way. Carter and Lee head to Water Rock Psychiatric Hospital, the hospital where Carrie Ann is confined. There, they're informed that Carrie Ann was catatonic for a long time, but when someone visited her for the first time the day before, Carrie Ann immediately became wide awake with bright eyes. When they check the log, they discover that the visitor wrote Lee's name. He talks to Carrie Ann, who tells her that she feels different, like she's having a long dark dream. When Lee asks about her parents, Carrie Ann says her mom hated her, but her dad was a good man. On the day of the Camera family farm murder, a doll resembling Carrie Ann, which was made and named Carrie Ann by Longlegs, appeared in the Camera's residence. Carrie Ann's parents then acted strange, with her mom repeatedly stabbing the doll and her dad beheading a cow out in the open. Seconds after the local priest arrived, her dad axed him, then his wife, then he killed himself. When Lee asks Carrie Ann to describe her visitor, Carrie Ann says she's been waiting for him to come and get her or tell her to do something for the man down the stairs.
If he told me to take a jumpy out a window, I'd surely do.
She came out of her catatonia the same day we found the doll.
Yeah, that could be anything but a coincidence. Look, we opened the ball in the doll's head and there's nothing inside.
Maybe we're missing something. Something that, I don't know, makes it work. In some cultures, dolls are used in magic to control people.
So he kills them with a doll from somewhere else by what? Remote control? Longlegs is just a man, Hawker, not a witch doctor.
Since Longlegs knows Lee's name and the case remained cold until Lee joined the team, Carter suspects that Lee has a connection to Longlegs.
What does that have to do with the case?
She called on a police report. January 13th, 1974. That's one day before your 9th birthday. That makes your birthday the 14th.
She did?
He encourages her to ask Ruth. Lee drives to their old house and asks Ruth about her 9th birthday, but Ruth says she doesn't remember. Ruth eerily tells her that she's not a child anymore and that all her childhood belongings are still in her room. With gloves on, Lee goes through her belongings and finds a Polaroid of a white-faced man. As it turns out, Longlegs was the man she met when she went to check the car. Lee gives Carter Longlegs' photo, which leads to Longlegs' arrest.
Sir, I'm gonna need you to get down on the fucking ground.
The FBI agents watch Longlegs' recorded interrogation, where he says his name is Dale Ferdinand Cobble, then looks for Lee and sings Happy Birthday dedicated to Lee for 24 minutes straight.
Happy birthday, Lee Harker. And what you want to know, and he'll be there.
Browning informs Carter and Lee that Longlegs' handwriting matches the letters found at the crime scenes and that he has heavily satanic belongings. Since there's no evidence connecting Longlegs to the crimes, Lee leans towards the possibility of him having an accomplice whom the families feel comfortable with. Since it's the 13th, the missing date, Lee says they can expect that his accomplice will kill at least one more family. Lee faces Longlegs in the interrogation room, and she tries to make him name his accomplice. He hints at Ruth's involvement, then repeatedly slams his head on the table, splattering his blood everywhere until he dies. Carter, who's angry about Longlegs' death, informs Lee that while she was interrogating Longlegs, Carrie Ann jumped off the roof at Water Rock. He concludes that Longlegs told all the victims what to do and had no accomplices or black magic. Unlike Carter, Browning refuses to leave Lee after the traumatic incident she witnessed. She drives Lee to their old house so they can bring Ruth in for questioning. While Lee looks for Ruth inside the house, she hears a shotgun go off and sees Ruth shoot Browning for the second time through a window. Lee goes out and catches Ruth about to shoot a doll that resembles the young Lee. When she asks what it is, Ruth tells her that since Cabo has been caught, he's now free, to which Ruth responds that she's now free too.
And you're free too, baby girl.
After Ruth shoots the doll's head off, a black smoke leaves Lee, and the doll and Lee loses consciousness. As it turns out, Longlegs visited Lee, who was supposed to die that day. However, Ruth intervened and begged him to spare Lee, to which he agreed with, in exchange for Ruth being his accomplice. Longlegs resided in the Harker's basement. After he made the dolls complete with his black magic, Ruth would pose as a nun with a Bible and would drop off the dolls to a family, saying it's a gift from the church. The dolls would then control the patriarchs, making them do the horrific crime. Lee's doll made her forget everything about Longlegs and told her where to look and what not to see. Lee wakes up in the Harker's basement and sees Longlegs' belongings. The phone rings, and when she answers, she hears a man's voice, eerily telling her that she's late for Ruby's birthday party. Lee rushes to the Carter's residence to save them, but when she arrives, she finds Ruth in a nun costume and Ruby playing with the doll that resembles her.
No, Carter, you have to listen to me.
Lee tells Carter that the nun is her mom and is Cabo's accomplice, but Carter is already possessed. After he kills his wife, Lee hides Ruby behind her and shoots him to protect her. Ruth demands that she move away from Ruby and pulls out a dagger. But before she can harm Lee, who's left with no choice, shoots her dead. Lee attempts to shoot the doll to destroy it, but her gun does not discharge. Weeping and staring at the doll, Lee tells Ruby that they have to leave. And that's the end.